Oh, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating. Happy, happy, happy.
Festivus.
Festivus. There we go. Great. In fact, I thought that was a great way of doing it because it encompasses sort of everything.
Yep.
Let's just celebrate. Very good. And who you heard just now is Amnan.
Good morning.
Amnan, our producer.
Good
Happy
afternoon.
Hanukkah.
A what?
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you, and Happy
Thank you,
Hanukkah,
my
and
dear.
Happy Kwanzaa, and everything to everybody.
Everything. Today I have a fun show because you know what? I always talk about how to stay healthy and what to do and so on. And I always have a little bit of a well, sometimes a little political rant. I think we're going to dispense with that one today for the for the honor of this fabulous holiday that we both are celebrating. Each of these holidays is a peaceful holiday. It's a holiday of togetherness and of goodwill. And we're going to talk about Amnon and I were going to explain to you a little bit of when we were growing up, of what that meant and what that was like. So, Amnon, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, Hanukkah, when I grew up, first of all, it was great for kids because we have 8 days off from school.
Yeah.
And I mean, over here, they also have it now for Hebrew
Christmas.
schools, Jewish
Yeah.
schools. I mean, Christmas break is a lot longer. It's not,
Yeah.
but to grow up in Israel, you feel it in the air, and the whole thing about 8 presents, not in Israel. This is an American thing. This
Well,
has nothing to do with the.
we'll talk about that
Yeah.
one. Yes.
But it's again, it's family getting together. Hanukkah is not a religious holiday. It's a festival. It's festival of light. It's celebrating the fact that they needed oil for the lamp in the temple, and there was no oil, and then they found a little bitty bottle that lasted for 8 days, was supposed to last for one day. So it's a celebrating that miracle. But again, in Israel, growing up, the somehow, and I don't know what's the story behind it, but the thing that everybody does at home and in family gathering is making donuts
Yeah.
and eating donuts. So
Yeah.
it was great. I mean, being a kid, it was something to look forward to when
Yeah.
the whole family is together. And when I'm saying family, I mean all the uncles and aunts and cousins, and yeah, you getting
Which we don't
together.
have very much anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. Everybody is on their own.
Yeah.
So it was
So, what
great.
were the foods that you ate during that time?
There is nothing special about the food itself. The only thing that was added was the donuts.
Mm.
So in general, it was a regular holiday, or
Right.
maybe there was something special and I don't remember. I don't know.
Right.
It's been a lot of years
That's a
since.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
And you haven't really brushed up on what is then and what was today.
right.
We'll talk a little bit more about also of, in Jesus the Last Supper and all of that, because it all fills into that, because it's all in the same country, really, in the
Yeah.
same region.
Right.
I mean, Jesus was a Jew, you know,
Yeah.
and so he did things that the Jewish traditions demanded, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I grew up. I was a member of the Y, the YMCA. So over there, at the YMCA, I mean, celebrating all the Christian holidays. And then I was working at the Y when I was old enough to volunteer so you really learned about that. So I did experience both.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
Israel, from what I understand, I only visited once, and that was, oh my God, that was 40 years ago, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, I lived in Turkey,
Mm-hmm.
and if we wanted to visit Israel, you could not have a stamp from any
Right.
of the Arabic countries in your passport.
Right.
And if you visited Israel and you had a stamp from Israel in your passport, you couldn't visit any of the Arab countries.
Right.
So what we used to do is, my husband at that time, he was an overseas principal for the American schools, and he was in charge of all the Middle Eastern and the whole region there of the schools. And so we traveled widely, you know, because there were holidays, and he had a very high GS rating, so we could fly on military airplanes anywhere where we wanted, which was really quite spectacular. So I visited Iran, and I visited also Israel, and what we did then, we would take the passport page with the Arab stamp or with the Israeli stamp, wet it, and then keep it in the sun to bleach it out, because that ink would bleach out.
Uh-huh.
It was just really hilarious. People would clamp it to their shirt pocket. You know, you would see people with their passport clamped to their shirt pocket. It was really quite. You think world is nutty now? It has never been really sane, you know. So just to say that we're not so nutty.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, there were, you know, you had donuts. Guess what? New Year's Eve in Germany, we eat these big jam-filled donuts. And my mother would order a big tray of it. I mean, just for the 5 or 6. I've always had a very small family because my father's family, my parents were divorced, and my father's family was not included. That was a very large family. And my mother's family, there was only one other sister, and my grandparents and her husband and my cousin. She didn't have a ton of children, and my mother only had 2 children. So we were a rather small family, but yet we had this huge tray of donuts, jam-filled donuts, and there was always one donut that had mustard in it. It didn't have jam in it. And if you got the mustard one, I mean, it was not good. It was not good. Thank God I never did. But we took delight in anybody who got the mustard one, you know, when they made their faces. And yeah. So that is for us for New Year's. We have those donuts. So that's why I find it was always very intertwined. So many we had in Germany, as you know, before Hitler came along, we had a very large population, Jewish population.
Right.
And that Jewish population had a lot of foods. They brought a lot of foods, the German and Russian foods, to Israel when they populated Israel.
Right.
So it's all very entwined and very familiar, you know. And I love, like I said, I love briskets, you know. I mean, I love brisket.
Yeah, Kathy
properly.
Is pretty good at it now.
It's nothing like it. I can't cook it. My husband hates it so much. He even hates the smell of it. And so he doesn't want to eat it. But thank God I always had enough Jewish friends who would occasionally make one,
Yeah,
and
nice.
I would partake.
Yeah.
Um, one of the foods that I remember as a child, we naturally always had a lot of sweets. Oh my God. Did you have so much sweets
In
in
different holidays, yes, but I mean in Hanukkah it wasn't anything special to have any sweets.
no,
Not
yeah,
that I remember.
right. I mean, in Germany at Christmas time, the sweets, I mean, if you're not diabetic before, you will definitely be after Christmas. I mean, it's the onslaught of sweet and sugar and marzipan. Does anybody know what marzipan is?
Mm.
It's an almond paste made with caster sugar that is melted, and then ground almonds and rose water. And you
Very
make this into a paste. And we make little animals out of, usually little piggies that are for good luck for New Year's. Then we make Santa Claus out of it. We call them marzipan potatoes. They are rolled, and then they are opened up in the top a little bit, and then they are rolled in powdered chocolate powder. But the bitter chocolate powder, not the sweetened one, the original chocolate powder.
mhm.
And in many of the health food stores, you can buy that now. Much better chocolate. If you want to make a chocolate, that's how to make a chocolate. You buy that powder, and you put hot milk into a cup with sugar, and then you put the chocolate powder in it. You stir it real well, and then you sweeten it as you go. It is the best. And if you want, for the adults that want to make it a little bit more like that little kick, right? You put a little
Mhm.
cayenne pepper into it, and it is really quite outstanding. I made yesterday. We went to our neighbors for Christmas Eve, and I made these little balls, but I made them with shredded coconut, the fine coconut powder type coconut. And the way you do that is you take hot milk and you put the coconut in it, but very little hot milk, so that when you put the coconut in, it thickens right away, and it makes it really quite a clump. And you keep stirring it, let it sit for a while, so that the shredded coconut in there softens a little bit. Then you take it out and you mix it with coconut oil, a little bit of coconut oil. Now, if you want it sweeter than the coconut in itself is sweet. But if you want it sweeter, you can put some powdered sugar into it. After you've mixed it, and it becomes quite a clumpy, doughy type of thing, okay? So you keep mixing it, let it sit for an hour or two before you start forming it. Then take small amount and roll it, and then roll it in coconut powder. Now, I always mix my coconut powder with a dash of cayenne. And I mean, the people were just going nutty over these. Thank God I made quite a few. And they were just, oh my God, they couldn't get enough. So that is really a very sweet, nice thing. But if you are diabetic, I wouldn't advise you to eat more than one or two because it's a sugar shock. um, Yeah, and so we had that, and we would eat Christmas Eve. We would always have at home, we would have potato salad and wieners, these good old European long wieners. And we would have that before we went to church, because we always went to church on Christmas Eve. And when I was in school, I was only home until I was, but at Christmas I usually came home. But uh, at school also we did that. We went for, because the whole months until January 6th is really Christmas. The Orthodox celebrate Christmas on January 6th. Why? Because they believe Jesus was born January 6th and not in December. Now we know that the Christmas holiday, that whole thing, is really a they have really no clue. Some people say Jesus was born January 6th. Some people say he was born in the summer, and some people, and there's some evidence that he was born January 25th.
And nobody can be proven wrong.
Nobody. So whatever your denomination, whatever your belief system, it's okay to celebrate whatever. And in my opinion, Christmas, we give gifts to each other. We try to be kind to each other. We try to extend a helping hand. But what about doing that all year? We should really do that all year, you know? I made this Christmas, I made gifts for everybody. I do not believe in buying stuff for people that have already too much stuff. Yeah. So since we don't have any small children around anymore, small children expect a toy. They expect something. But adults, I usually make something. And I think I said that last Sunday. I made some trays, which are just really gorgeous. And then I made these little earmuffs that you can pull down, and it becomes a little color, little knitted. If you are inclined to do such things, you know, you can make other things. There are lots of things one can make. Anyway, I also believe that it is a holiday, or should be a holiday, for everyone to have loving kindness. And as you guys know or not know, is that my belief system has changed over the years. From I was baptized Lutheran, then I was educated Catholic. Now, if that doesn't screw you up, nothing will. And then I lived all over the world. And I must say that it has shaped me. It has made me a different person. I believe now that the Buddhist belief system is a belief system that would serve us the best. It believes in vegetarianism. It believes in being kind and patient and compassionate. It believes not in war, in that aggression is the answer to anything. And to me, that is really the way the world should view. You know, even Jesus said, somebody who slaps you in the face, do not slap back, just hold the other cheek and say, here, slap me on this side too. I really think if we to be a kinder, gentler world, as we had said many times before, that it's a long process. It's a long process. We are a long way away from that. And let's nobody try to push us back with nuclear power, escalating war machines, escalating conflicts. That does not serve anyone, no one. not the aggressors and not the ones who are being uh, violated. It does not serve us for anything. And if we have learned anything as people, that is what we should be learning. You know, I also promised you to that we will be talking a little bit about at Jesus's time. What was the medicine like? Well, I did some research, and much of it I knew, and some of it I didn't. So here's what I came up with. The way I grew up was that Jesus and was the Messiah and was the healer of all and of everything. Well, new evidence and the new and gospels that they have found are showing that Jesus may have not been so exceptional as they made him out afterwards. Jesus may have been a Messiah or a man of who was a healer and a miracle man, really, who performed miracles. But in those days, at the time of Jesus, there were hundreds of those men around. They were learned men. The Pharisees were the ones that came after the big Jewish priests. The temples had been destroyed by the Babylonians. The Jerusalem temple had been burned down. 60 years later, it was burned down again. And now the priests did not have the statue anymore as they had before. The Pharisees, who were the ones who were the scribes, who were the ones who helped to calm the people and to set the rules and tell the people how to live. One of the things of ancient times that when I grew up, we still had fasting days. We still had days when we fasted, and we always ate on Fridays fish. And we ate on New Year's Day fish. We usually had a big carp. Now, there were reasons for that. The reasons for that were that if you cleanse the body with fasting, you will live longer. You will live a healthier life. If you eat fish at least once a week, your brain cells and your omega-3 and omega-6 levels in your body will be just perfect because you don't need to even eat anything else. And usually a fatty fish like a carp or a salmon or something that was a little bit more fatty. You know, filet of sole, we thought of as a delicacy. We did not think of that it was really a fish to be eaten a lot of. You know, you would eat a small amount, maybe once in a blue moon, maybe in May when the flounders were just, you know, prolific and they were fishing for flounder. But herring was one. I always now at this time of the year, I have herring. Amnon, did you guys eat herring?
No, I didn't. It was
No.
though the Ashkenazi, which is the European Jews, did.
Yeah.
It was pickled, I think.
Yes, pickled, and I eat it in sour cream with apples and onions. I put a couple of juniper berries in there, and I have it. And it is the most delicious food. I mean, I can't wait for Christmas when the Much's herring comes out. They come out in packages, and I buy it. And I have a friend coming who is going to be 97 on Wednesday, and he is Jewish, and he is a German Jew, and he. I just have to share this with you because I am not Jewish, But he would always say, the only thing wrong with you is that you're not Jewish, that you're German.
Hmm.
I always thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, we all have a sense of humor. Some sense of humor is offending, some is not. I didn't think it was offensive because I certainly never had anything to do with what happened in Hitler's time. I was just a baby,
Mm-hmm.
and babies, they didn't ask babies in those days as they don't ask them today.
Right.
But um, I mean, so he is going to come, and we're going to have a big feast of Matjes herring in sour cream, and I make small little boiled potatoes with it, rolled in butter. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but the most delicious meal that you can think of, at least for me. So yeah, so that's what we always had between the holidays. And like I said, the fasting days, every belief system, Islam has fasting days, Ramadan. The Jews have fasting days. Everybody has fasting days. Most of these fasting days have been put by the wayside. We'll get into that in a minute. But that was to keep us healthy. The ancient medicine men, the ancient doctors, they understood if you cleanse the body from the outside and the inside, you stayed longer, healthier. That was one of the most preventative medicines. What they would give to people who to cleanse the inside was kaolin and bentonite clay. It also helped with diarrhea. But if you would take bentonite clay or kaolin clay, which you can still buy, if you take a teaspoon of that, maybe in milk or whatever, you will be able, because it's roughage, your body will be cleansed inside. They used it also to cleanse outside the body for skin ailments. They would coat the area with kaolin or bentonite clay, and any itch, eczema, would be appeased by that. You don't, and you can do that same today. Many of these things are still very, very much in use. Wild ginger was used a lot for any kind of nausea or upset stomach. They would use wild ginger. They would grate it into either milk, or they would grate, and a lot more goat milk and sheep's milk was used. Not so much bovine milk, cow's milk. Cow's milk really has many of the lactic acids that is not very compatible with our system. But goat's milk and sheep's milk does not have that. So people would drink those instead of the cow's milk. Also camel's milk. Many of the eastern tribes drank mare's milk, horse milk, which from what I understand, I never have had. I've had goat's milk and sheep's milk, but I've never had horse milk. And from what I understand, it is very sweet. They also used to ferment it for kumis, which was an intoxicating drink. Very, very nice, from what I understand, and really gives you quite a buzz, from what I understand. The famous Roman physician Galen, who lived 129 to 199 AD, his surgical practices are still being used. For instance, for dental, if you had a cavity, a really deep cavity, they would insert into that cavity, they would insert a small copper wire, and then that copper wire was hot, and it would burn into the tooth and adhere to this tooth and would fill the tooth. You know, none of this mercury crap that we have been using for years and years, and that poisoned our bodies. What they also did, Galen also did, is he performed he even performed hysterectomies, brain surgery, cataract, many of the practices that Galen really ventured and started to use is still being practiced today. Much of that, and some of the practices are not so. They have found that they're not really working, but many of them do. One thing that was really interesting, and that I did not know, although I did know that cannabis or marijuana was used much before, but in the ancient times, at Jesus's times, and much of what his miracles, we all heard about the miracle of the one Lazarus who rose from the dead, the woman that started to hear again, the blind that started to see again. Much of that is documented in the Testaments. And one of the reasons why they feel, what many researchers and people who have researched religion, they feel that it was a result of that the Hebrew priests anointed people with oil containing cannabis, and the word for cannabis in those days was cannabis, cannabis. And this is what in Exodus 30, 22, 23, it shows the recipe for it, for that oil that they used to anoint people. It contained over 6 pounds of cannabis, a substance identified by respected etymologists, linguists, and anthropologists, botanists, and other researchers as cannabis, extracted in about 6 quarts of olive oil, along with a variety of other fragrant herbs. The ancient anointed ones were literally drenched in this potent mixture. Now, you guys know that my remedies use CBD oil, which is an oil made from cannabis or from hemp, really, which is also a and when you apply that to the skin, the cannabinoids that are in there will enter into the skin and relieve any pain, aches, or whatever. I have many of my patients, when they apply the cream that I make with that, their joint pain, their muscle pain will literally disappear. Now, in ancient times, this is what a professor of classical mythology, Karl Rock, is saying. There can be little doubt about the role of cannabis in Judaic religion. There's no way that such an important plant as a fiber source for textiles and nutritive oils, and one so easy to grow, would have gone unnoticed. The mere harvesting of it would have induced an ethogenic reaction. So there you have it. They used that already. They also used the seeds to eat. If you can get some hemp seeds, and you can buy them in the health food stores now, they are delicious on salads. And it again helps the body to rid itself of any kind of malaise. So these ancient doctors would use these medicines. They would use these herbs. They would use, that's mostly what they used. They were much more advanced than we thought of. They have found surgical instruments that show of how advanced they really were. But then came the Christian church, and all of a sudden everything changed. This 1100, 1200, it started, and then the church outlawed that you could do experiment on cadavers. The ancient doctors experimented on cadavers. They looked at every phase of the body. They looked at the organs. They knew where the organs were. They knew how they reacted. They knew if they were, like if the liver was, they compared a healthy liver to a liver taken from a cadaver that was diseased. They saw the changes, and they would act accordingly. They would take pieces of it, put it into solutions, and see if it would clear itself. They have really freely experimented. 1100s came along. The Christian church, the Catholic church, came along, and they put a kibosh on all of that. They said you cannot have cadavers, to open them up and experiment on it. You cannot use certain herbs. You cannot. So now the doctors, from that time until about the 1800s, 1800s, all they had available for them was bloodletting, some herbs, and some brave doctors who said, well, we can't just bleed these people out, because everybody, you had a headache, let's bleed you. You have a footache, let's bleed you. You have skin disease, let's bleed you. You can't go poop, let's bleed you. That was the answer for everything. Fortunately, we dispensed with that. Then in 1800s, middle of 1800s, Hahnemann came along, and he started with homeopathy. But all that was already much earlier. Hippocrates was already saying, we need to use of the herbs the most minimal amount. Do not, I have said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If you take a huge cannon and want to scare away this pigeon that is crapping on your roof, and you want it gone, then you don't take a big cannon, because your roof will blow off. But you take a small BB gun and you shoot to this pigeon, and hopefully the pigeon will leave and not come back. Well, that's a lot like medicine. In the early days, at the time of Jesus, when Jesus was born, they were able to do that. There were many, many physicians and many doctors that were in the same amount. And I believe that little bit of oil, Amnon, that they found, and that lasted so long, was probably a hemp oil. because hemp oil lasts for much longer than olive oil. Olive oil burns away quickly and fast. Hemp oil lasts much longer.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, it is for everything. The three wise men who came to visit Jesus, one brought myrrh, which is an antiseptic. Myrrh is used to clear the air, to see that you can use myrrh also. When I was a little girl, I used to have these little aftons in my mouth, these little sore spots, and they hurt like crazy, and the doctor my mother took me to, she painted myrrh extract in my mouth, and it stopped the pain immediately and made the afton go away in a day or two. Myrrh, you can still buy myrrh, but buy the organic one. Buy not the myrrh essence that they made from whatever. Now, buy organic, comes in a little drop about it, but use it very sparingly. I would dilute it. If you use it for an afton inside your mouth, dilute it with a little coconut oil is best, or a little olive oil. They also used what? What else did they bring? Does anybody know what the three wise men brought?
No idea.
Any of my listeners? Come on, listeners. Merry Christmas. Come on. Let me know what all of the Christians out there. We can excuse Amnon. I mean, he doesn't know any better, right? But but all of the other ones, the Christians that were educated in a Christian religious. What else did the wise men bring?
Nothing
Anybody?
yet.
Nobody? Oh my goodness.
If
what
you
a
have
sad world out there.
If you have an answer or a comment, 919-518-9773 or Computers 2K Voice on Skype. Of course, and I don't know why most of you don't do that, you can log into the chat right on this page and talk to us.
Yeah.
Kathy's saying frankincense.
Yes. One big star for Kathy. Yes. Yes. And gold. And gold the wise men brought. Now, frankincense was used to also fumigate the air to get rid of bad smells and any kind of, it was really a air fumigator that got rid of disease in the air. Because in the days, we don't know if there were wise men that came and saw Jesus and that they brought this, but the church afterwards claims it, because frankincense is also in the containers that if you ever have gone to a Catholic church, they still wave that they light it and smoke comes out of it, and it helps to fumigate the area. Now, in those days, there was a lot of bad smells. People did not wash, especially in the Middle Ages. Washing and bathing was something that was frowned on by the Catholic Church. It was, you could not show your body in any way. That's why there was so much pestilence. There was really the time the time from like 1100 to about 1700. If you were poor, even if you were rich, it was not a good time to live. Um, but because there was so much illness at that time, and the frankincense, when they went to churches and the big gatherings, I mean, you couldn't stand there among hundreds of people that never bathed. Can you imagine? Well, frankincense helped alleviate the air a little bit, okay? And frankincense was also used to fumigate an area that they would want to treat, like for instance in um, in hospitals, and in those days only the nuns and the monks were able to run a hospital, and they used frankincense there. Now, gold is also a medicinal. Gold is used for people that had uh, bad digestive problems, real bad digestive problems, very likely cancers of some kind. They would take powdered gold in their food, but also and they still use today, gold injections for rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is relieved very much so by gold injections. They hurt like hell, to tell you the truth. I had one once because I had a bad back, and the doctor thought, well, you probably have rheumatoid arthritis, which I didn't, okay? But then we know not every doctor is smart. And he gave me this injection. I almost slapped him. It was so painful. And I said, that's it. I'll never, ever have that again. So, but if somebody is skillful with that, obviously this guy didn't know what he was doing. But if they are skillful in that, then that can be of great use. So gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Makes sense, no? Yeah, makes sense. Was very much so, but again, cannabis and also peyote and mushrooms were used to dull the senses before an operation. And most of the priests used one form or another of alternative consciousness. So they would have opiums was used. Opium up till, well, we have an epidemic now again. But in those days, women if they were wealthy, most of these women, they were so bored they couldn't see straight because their husbands were all over the place. They did everything, and women were not allowed to do anything. So many women were addicted to opiates, and the pharmacists, they would make them in little bottles, and they would put opium in there in a certain strength, from a very small amount to a larger amount. And the more addicted you got, the more you wanted. So there were a lot of drug addicts in the Middle Ages, let me assure you, because that was all there was, really. But now we have all the other, and we still have drug addicts, so figures, right? But when Christ anointed his followers, we know that he anointed his 12 apostles. And what do you think he used? He used the cannabis oil. He used, and he said, do this likewise. Now, the first gospel was written 30 years after Christ's death. Now, why do you think it took 30 years after Christ's death? If you would like to know my theory on that, tune in next Sunday, and I will tell you what my theory is about it. Today, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Go forth and do good. Go forth, help someone. Go forth and smile at somebody in the supermarket who looks sad. Just smile at them. See of how they will smile back. It will brighten their day. It will really brighten their day. And I hope it brightens your day. Remember, to give is much better than to receive. With that, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful week. Have a great, I hope you enjoyed this show. Please tell your friends. We need to grow the show even more than it is. It is growing fabulously, but we want to have more listeners because we want to spread the gospel. We want to spread the news that there are answers for natural health. You can live a long and prolific life. And you know what? It is much better, even if you have a friend or somebody that died prematurely. It's not how long you live. Not at all. It's how well you live, how much you make of each day. That's what is important. With that, I wish you a wonderful one. Tune in next Sunday to the Gisela Show. Tell your friends on Nissan Communications. Amnon, it was a pleasure being on your show.
Same here, and have a Merry Christmas, you and yours.
Thank you. Same to you. Have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you want to call it, Kwanzaa, what was the other one? Festival,
Festivus.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Have a great one, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.